Alpha King was rescued from a burning cave by Omega, then questioned who altered his fate line. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to Amelia Hart. Smoke curled through the silver pine night like threads of dark silk, carrying the faint crackle of flames that didn't belong in these quiet woods. Amelia paused on the narrow trail, her breath catching when the scent reached her, burning pine, scorched earth, and something else beneath it. Danger humming low like a warning in her bones. She shouldn't have been out this late. Omegas were expected to stay within pack grounds, unseen and unheard. But the forest always felt kinder than the people who judged her worth by the softness of her voice or the gentleness of her hands. Tonight, though, the woods felt restless. A sudden rumble rolled beneath her feet, and she jerked her head toward Emberfall Ridge. A glow, too bright to be moonlight, pulsed from deep inside the mountainside. Heat brushed her cheeks as if the earth itself exhaled. She whispered to no one, "That's a cave fire." But who would be inside at this hour? Another tremor answered her. Not a natural quake this time, but something collapsing. Someone trapped. Her heart raced with a fierce, quiet certainty. She didn't think. She ran. Branches whipped her arms as she sprinted uphill, gravel slipping under her boots, breath burning in her lungs. By the time she reached the mouth of the cave, waves of heat shimmered through the air, and thick smoke billowed outward. Every instinct told her to stop, to turn back, to remember she was the weakest in a world built on strength. But a voice inside her whispered just as loudly, "If you walk away and someone dies, could you live with it?" Pulling her sleeve over her nose, she pushed into the smoke. Darkness swallowed her whole except for thin streaks of fire carving molten veins along the cave walls. The deeper she went, the more the heat pulsed, heavy enough to make her sway. Then she saw him. A man lay half-pinned beneath a fallen slab of rock, his chest rising with shallow, labored breaths. His dark hair was dusted in ash, his features half-lit by the embers glowing at his back. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Sir, can you hear me?" No answer. Only a faint, steady heartbeat when she pressed trembling fingers to his wrist. She braced her shoulder against the slab, pushing with every ounce of strength. It didn't budge. Gritting her teeth, she shifted her position, using leverage instead of force the way healers taught her. The stone shifted, an inch, then two, just enough for her to drag him free. Heat roared behind them as another spray of sparks burst from the deeper tunnels. She crouched low, hooking her arms under his and pulling him toward the fading outline of daylight. His weight was solid, heavier than she expected, but she kept moving, step by dragging step, her boots skidding on the uneven ground. When they finally broke through the cave entrance, cold night air hit her face like salvation. She lowered him onto a patch of cool earth, brushing ash from his cheek. "You're safe," she whispered, though he couldn't hear. His breathing steadied. His eyes remained closed. And Amelia had no idea that the man she had just rescued was Lucian Hale, the Alpha King whose fate line, according to the Moon Oracle, could never be altered until her hands touched him. Night settled deeper around Emberfall Ridge as Amelia Hart knelt beside the unconscious stranger, her palms hovering uncertainly above his chest, as if afraid her touch might disturb something fragile. The forest air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and cooling earth, a sharp contrast to the heat still clinging to his clothes. She watched his breathing steady and slow, controlled ways that reminded her of someone trained to face danger without flinching. Whoever he was, he carried the quiet gravity of someone important. A soft breeze brushed her cheek, stirring ash from his hair, revealing a faint, silvery mark along his temple. She leaned closer, curiosity tugging at her, but before she could study it further, his fingers twitched. Amelia froze. His hand curled slightly, as if reaching for something he could not find, and then his eyes opened. Not fully, just enough for moonlight to catch them. And that was when she saw the color. Silver. Pure, unmistakable silver, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her breath hitched. She had only ever heard stories of eyes like that, stories told in hushed, reverent tones that carried more fear than admiration. She whispered, barely audible, "No, it cannot be." His gaze shifted, unfocused but searching, as though he felt something familiar in the air around him. Where? His voice was low, roughened by smoke, but steady enough to send a shiver down her spine. Amelia spoke softly, mindful not to startle him. "You are outside. I pulled you from the cave. You were trapped." His eyes fluttered closed, as if sorting through fragments of memory, and she could almost feel him realizing that a stranger had carried him out of danger. The weight of that truth settled between them. A glow from the ridge pulsed again, but this time gentle, like the cave fire was losing its breath. Amelia glanced over her shoulder, ensuring no sparks had followed them, then focused back on him. He was studying her now, not fully awake but aware enough to take in her face, her trembling hands, the soot staining her sleeves. "You carried me?" His voice was quiet, not incredulous, but something close to wondering. "Yes," she answered, her cheeks warming. "I could not leave you there." A pause stretched, delicate and suspended, before he murmured, "Most would have." She looked down. "I am not most people." His breath eased out, a sound between relief and confusion. The silver in his eyes brightened, catching the reflection of the moon above the treetops. Then something changed. His gaze sharpened, focusing on her wrist where her pulse fluttered wildly. His expression shifted, not frightening, but intense, as though he was sensing something unseen. "Strange," he whispered. "The line has shifted." Amelia blinked. "What line?" He did not answer right away. Instead, he lifted his hand, slow and controlled, and let his fingertips hover near her wrist, not touching, simply tracing the air above it. His brow furrowed, puzzled. "My fate line. It does not end where it used to." Amelia felt a soft ache in her chest, a quiet uncertainty blooming like a question she could not yet ask. He opened his eyes fully then, meeting hers with a clarity that made her heart stumble. "Who are you?" he asked, voice barely above a breath. "To change the path the moon once set for me." She had no answer. All she knew was that nothing about this night felt ordinary anymore. Not the fire, not the man before her, and certainly not the way the air itself seemed to wait for whatever would happen next. The silver in his eyes dimmed to a softer glow as the night embraced the forest, and Amelia's heart felt the weight of the moment settle over them like a held breath. Lucian did not speak again right away. He simply watched her, as if trying to map something unseen between them, something he had never expected to encounter. Amelia shifted her knees against the cool earth, unsure whether she should help him sit fully upright or let him steady himself. Before she could decide, he braced one hand against the ground and slowly lifted himself, wincing only at the lingering smoke in his lungs. She reached out instinctively. "Careful," she whispered. He paused, studying her hand before allowing her support. His touch was careful, almost formal, as though he feared overwhelming her. When he was fully seated, he drew a slow breath and asked, "You said you found me in the cave. Did you see anyone else?" Amelia shook her head. "No, you were alone." Lucian's expression tightened, not with fear, but with thought. "I remember entering the ridge tunnel. I remember following the sound of something shifting behind the rock wall. And then, the fire." His brow furrowed. It was not natural. Fire does not behave that way in stone. Amelia hesitated. "Do you think someone caused it?" He did not answer for a moment. Instead, he turned his head toward the cave mouth, the smoldering light reflecting faintly in his eyes. Perhaps. Or perhaps it was meant to force a moment the moon needed to reveal. Her heartbeat fluttered. "Reveal what?" Lucian looked back at her. "That is what I intend to understand." The intensity of his gaze softened suddenly, as if he realized she was doing her best to keep up with a world far larger than hers. "You risked your life," he said quietly. "Why?" Amelia swallowed, unsure how to put the truth into words. "Because someone needed help," she said finally. "I did not know who you were. I only knew you were trapped." His eyes held hers as though testing the sincerity in her voice, but instead of doubt, something like gratitude flickered across his features. A soft breeze rustled the leaves above them, carrying the distant call of an owl. He shifted again, grounding himself, and Amelia noticed how the shadows bent around him, not in fear but in recognition, as if the night itself knew his name. You said something about a line, she murmured softly. Your fate line. Lucian's jaw tightened, not with anger but with the weight of a secret carried too long. Every Alpha King is born marked, he said. The Moon Oracle reads the path laid out for us. The choices we will face. The bonds we may form. He looked down at his hand as though expecting to see something etched into the skin. My line has never changed. It is said that only a force outside destiny could alter it. Amelia's breath steadied. And you think I did that? He lifted his gaze, calm but searching. When you touched me, something shifted. I felt it, as if a thread that had been still for years pulled in a new direction. She did not know what to say. She had no power, no status, no reason to believe she could influence the life of a king. She looked down at her soot-stained hands, unsure whether she should hide them or offer them again. Lucian noticed. You do not need to fear this, he said gently. Whatever changed, it does not feel harmful. His voice softened further. Only unexpected. Amelia's heart eased slightly at the reassurance. Then, with newfound steadiness, she asked, what happens now? Lucian turned his face toward the moon, its pale light softening the sharp edges of the night. Now, he said with calm certainty, I must understand who you are in the story destiny has begun to rewrite. And though he did not say it aloud, Amelia felt the truth settle in her chest like a quiet spark. Their paths were no longer separate. The moon climbed higher, washing the forest in a soft silver glow as Amelia Hart watched Lucian steady himself against a fallen log. The quiet between them was not uncomfortable, but charged with the weight of questions neither knew how to form. She noticed how he listened to the world around them with sharpened senses, as though every rustle of leaves whispered something only he could understand. When his gaze lifted to hers again, it held a new clarity, like the lingering smoke in his lungs had finally cleared. We should move from here, he said gently. The air will be easier to breathe away from the ridge. Amelia nodded, standing and brushing ash from her skirt. She offered her hand instinctively, unsure if he would accept it. He did, his fingers closing around hers with surprising steadiness, not pulling strength from her, but grounding himself in the simple reassurance of contact. When he released her hand, she felt the warmth linger. They walked slowly toward a clearing where the trees opened to reveal a stretch of open sky. Night insects hummed softly, and the soft glow of starlight seemed to settle like mist upon the grass. Lucian lowered himself onto a smooth boulder, and Amelia stayed near him, alert in case he needed support. Her heart tugged between concern and confusion. He was clearly recovering quickly, yet something about him felt fragile in a way she never would have expected from someone with silver eyes. You keep looking at me as if you expect me to vanish, he said softly. Amelia startled slightly. I am only trying to make sure you are all right. His expression eased, touched with quiet gratitude. Most would keep their distance. I am still a stranger to you. She hesitated. You do not feel like one. Lucian lowered his gaze to his hands, turning them slowly as if searching for an answer hidden in the lines of his palms. The oracle once told me that my destiny would unfold untouched by any outside influence. That my decisions, my alliances, even my bond were predetermined. Amelia frowned. Predetermined? That does not sound fair. He lifted his eyes, surprised by the simplicity of her response. Fairness is not something promised to kings. Amelia found herself stepping a little closer, her voice barely above a whisper. But you are still a person. The breeze softened, as if pausing to hear his reply. Instead of answering directly, Lucian asked, Amelia, has anything unusual happened to you recently? Any dreams, sensations, or moments that felt out of place? She shook her head. No, I am just an ordinary Omega. Nothing about me is unusual. Lucian studied her quietly, as though weighing that statement against something he sensed. Ordinary, he repeated gently. You carried me through smoke and heat. You faced fear without hesitation. Ordinary is not the word I would choose. Amelia felt her cheeks warm, her thoughts stumbling over how to respond. Before she could find words, Lucian exhaled slowly and looked toward the glowing ridge. If my fate line truly shifted, I will need to understand why. He turned back to her, his gaze steady. And that means I cannot let you walk away from this night, as if nothing happened. Amelia's heartbeat fluttered at the certainty in his tone. What does that mean? Lucian rose carefully to his feet, the moon reflecting in his eyes like two polished mirrors. "It means," he said, "that your life and mine have crossed in a way neither of us can ignore." His voice softened. "And I intend to protect whatever thread binds us, until I understand it fully." As the forest held its breath, Amelia realized that she had stepped into a story far larger than the one she had lived until now, and the path ahead was beginning to glow with a new, uncertain light. The night air settled around them like a soft blanket, cool enough to steady Amelia's heart's racing heartbeat as she watched Lucian study the tree line with quiet intent. She could tell he was listening for something she could not hear, reading the forest the way others read a familiar book. Even after everything she had seen, she still struggled to reconcile the calm man before her with the legends whispered through every pack in the Northern Territories. Lucian finally relaxed his shoulders, the faintest hint of relief drifting across his features. "The ridge is cooling," he said. "The danger has passed for now." Amelia nodded, though she had not sensed anything at all. Her world had always been quieter, softer, shaped by the rhythms of simple tasks and the hope of belonging. Tonight felt like stepping into someone else's story. Lucian glanced at her, as if sensing her thoughts. "You have handled all of this with a steadiness I did not expect." She managed a small laugh. "I do not feel steady." He tilted his head slightly, his voice low and thoughtful. "Courage often hides inside people who never meant to carry it." That warmth in his tone surprised her more than anything. She found herself sinking onto a patch of grass nearby, brushing twigs aside as she sat. Lucian joined her, lowering himself with care, though his movements were much stronger than when she had dragged him from the cave. A comfortable quiet stretched between them. The stars glittered overhead, scattered like silver dust across the sky, reflecting faintly in the lenses of his eyes. Amelia wrapped her arms around her knees. "Do you think your fate line changed because of the fire?" He shook his head slowly. "Fire cannot alter destiny. Only intention can." Amelia blinked. "Intention, a choice made in truth," he explained, "or a moment the moon did not foresee." He turned toward her. "When you touched me in the cave, something shifted. It was not the fire. It was you." Amelia looked down, unsure how someone like her could influence someone like him. "But I am just an Omega." Lucian's reply came without hesitation. "You keep saying that as if it defines your worth." She hesitated. "Does it not?" For a moment he studied her expression, his brows softening with something almost like concern. "Your rank does not concern me. What concerns me is how you ran into danger for a man you did not know." Amelia swallowed. "Anyone would have." "No," he said gently. "They would not." His certainty made her chest tighten in a way she could not explain. The breeze picked up, stirring the grass at their feet, and Amelia watched as Lucian lifted his hand slightly, as though testing the air for a scent or a sign. Then he turned to her with that same searching gaze he had given her earlier. "There is something I cannot ignore," he said softly. "When you helped me stand, when your hand touched mine, I felt the thread shift again." Amelia blinked. "Thread? My fate line. It responds to you." Her breath caught in her throat. "What does that mean?" Lucian looked up at the moon, letting its pale light wash over him. When he spoke, his voice held both caution and curiosity, as if he were stepping carefully around something sacred. "It means," he said slowly, "that whatever force governs my destiny has acknowledged you." Amelia felt the world quiet around them. The sounds of the forest dimmed, and even the breeze seemed to pause, waiting. Lucian met her eyes once more. "And I do not yet know whether you were placed in my path by chance, by courage, or by something far older than either of us." Her heart fluttered with uncertainty, wonder, and a hint of fear. She whispered, "What do we do now?" Lucian's voice softened to a promise. "Now we follow where the thread leads." The forest had settled into a deeper stillness, the kind that made the night feel almost suspended in time, as if the world were holding its breath around Amelia Hart and Lucian. A soft halo of moonlight filtered through the branches above them, brushing the grass in a pale shimmer. Amelia could feel the quiet shifting between them, something unspoken but undeniably present. Lucian stood slowly, testing his balance, and though he moved with far more strength than before, he carried himself with a careful awareness that reminded her he had only just escaped real harm. She rose as well, brushing her palms against her skirt, suddenly conscious of the ash smudges still staining her fingers. Lucian noticed, his attention sharpening with a softness she did not expect. "You should rest," he said gently. "Tonight has taken more from you than you realize." Amelia shook her head. "I am all right. I was not the one hurt." His eyes softened. Pain is not measured only in wounds. She did not know how to respond to that, so she looked toward the faint glow still lingering above Emberfall Ridge. It had dimmed to a soft orange, like the last ember in a dying fire. "What were you doing there?" she asked carefully. Lucian exhaled. The sound weighted with something old and complex. "I was following a lead," he said. The oracle spoke of a disturbance near the ridge, something that might influence the path ahead. Amelia frowned slightly. "And the fire?" "Unexpected," he said simply, "and unnatural." His voice held a quiet edge, not anger, but certainty. "Whatever caused it was not meant to destroy me. It was meant to direct me." Amelia's breath caught. Toward what? Lucian's gaze settled on her with a steadiness that made her pulse skip. Toward the moment the thread shifted. Her heart fluttered at the implications she still could not fully understand. She turned her face toward the open clearing, letting the night air cool her cheeks. Lucian stepped closer, not imposing, but present enough that she felt his warmth despite the distance between them. "There is something I need to ask," he said quietly. Amelia faced him again. "What is it?" Lucian hesitated, as if choosing his words with care. "When you entered that cave, what did you feel?" She blinked at the simplicity of the question. "I felt fear," she admitted. "The smoke, the heat, everything in me said to run." Lucian nodded slowly. "And yet you stayed." Amelia's voice softened. "Because someone was inside. Someone who needed help." A faint, thoughtful crease formed between his brows. "You never sensed anything else? No pull, no vision, no moment of recognition?" Amelia shook her head quickly. "No, nothing like that." Lucian's expression did not darken, but shifted into a quieter contemplation. "Then the change did not come from you knowing me," he said softly. "It came from something knowing you." Amelia stared at him, unsure what to make of such a possibility. "I do not understand." "Neither do I," he admitted. "But the moon does not move threads by mistake." He stepped back to look skyward, letting silver light touch his face. "And my fate line has not shifted in all my years. Until tonight." Amelia felt a tremor of uncertainty ripple through her. "What will it mean for you?" Lucian lowered his gaze, meeting hers with calm resolve. "It means I must stay near the source of the change. And that source is you." Something warm and uncertain blossomed in her chest, gentle but powerful. Lucian's voice softened. "I will not ask you to accept what you do not yet understand. But I will ask for your trust as we uncover what the moon has begun." The night seemed to gather around his words, carrying them with a quiet promise that neither of them could yet name. The night grew quieter as if the entire forest leaned in closer, listening to whatever passed between Amelia Hart and Lucian beneath the canopy of silver pine. Moonlight traced the edges of the clearing, the soft glow settling across Lucian's shoulders like a mantle that did not need to be claimed. Amelia watched him, not because he commanded attention, but because the air around him felt subtly magnetized, a pull she could not explain. Lucian stepped closer, not enough to crowd her, but enough that she felt the warmth radiating from him, gentle and steady. "Amelia," he said softly, "when destiny shifts, it is never without reason. It may frighten you, but threads move only when they must." His calm certainty made her chest tighten. She wrapped her arms loosely around herself, more to steady her emotions than to shield against the cool air. "I do not know how I could be connected to your fate," she whispered. "I am no one of importance." Lucian's gaze deepened, silver brightening just slightly. "Importance is not measured by rank, Amelia. The moon chooses through truth, not hierarchy." She looked down at her hands, still faintly marked with ash. "What if this is a mistake?" Lucian shook his head slowly, the movement deliberate. "The moon does not make mistakes. It may keep secrets, but it does not err." A breeze stirred the leaves above them. Amelia felt it lift the ends of her hair, brushing them across her cheek. She tucked a loose strand behind her ear, trying to organize her thoughts. Lucian watched the movement with an unreadable softness before drawing a breath. "Something else happened when you touched me," he said. Amelia's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "When you pulled me from the cave," Lucian continued, "I felt a barrier I have carried my entire life flicker. It was like a door shifting on its hinges. Amelia frowned gently. A barrier? The oracle told me that part of my path was shielded, hidden even from me. She said it would remain locked until someone with no stake in power crossed it. Lucian met her eyes. Someone unbound by expectation. Amelia's breath caught. You think that was me? I know it was, he said quietly. The moment your hand touched my arm, the shield trembled. It has never done that before. Amelia felt a strange warmth bloom inside her. Not pride, not fear, something gentler. But I did nothing special. You acted from compassion, Lucian replied. A rare force in a world shaped by ambition. His tone softened further. That is not nothing. The forest seemed to hum with agreement, cicadas buzzing softly in the distance. Amelia sank onto the grass, overwhelmed by the enormity of what she was hearing. Lucian joined her again, lowering himself onto a smooth patch of earth. He sat close enough that their shoulders nearly brushed, yet he kept a respectful inch of space, as if he sensed she needed room to breathe. After a long moment, he spoke again. I must return to the capital, he said. There are things that need answers, and the oracle must see. What has changed? Amelia nodded slowly. I understand. Lucian turned toward her, his expression steady. I want you to come with me. The words were gentle, but they carried the weight of something deeper, something that sent a warm ripple through her chest. Amelia's breath stilled. Come with you? Yes, Lucian said softly. This thread that connects us, it will not unravel by distance. But understanding it requires us to walk the same path, at least for now. The wind quieted. Even the leaves seemed to pause. Amelia whispered, Lucian, I do not belong in a king's world. His smile was small, almost unseen, but warm. Perhaps the king's world must make room. For a long, delicate moment, Amelia Hart could only stare at Lucian, her breath caught between disbelief and something softer, something she did not yet have a name for. The clearing around them felt suspended in quiet wonder, as though even the night creatures waited to hear her answer. You want me to go with you? She repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Lucian nodded once, his silver eyes steady. I do. Not as a subject. Not as a servant. As the person connected to what shifted my path. Amelia's pulse fluttered. The idea of leaving her small, predictable life felt impossible, yet strangely inevitable. Lucian, I am just an omega. I do not know how to walk beside a king. He stepped closer, careful with every movement, as if he did not want to overwhelm her. Then walk beside me as Amelia, he said gently. Titles are for courts and councils. What happened tonight belongs to neither. His voice had softened in a way that made her chest ache. She hugged her arms lightly around herself, feeling the cool grass beneath her feet. My pack will not understand, she whispered. They hardly notice me as it is, but if I disappear, you do not have to decide this moment, Lucian said, his tone calm, grounded. All I ask is that you let the idea breathe. Let it settle before you reject it out of fear. Amelia exhaled slowly. Fear, she realized, was not the only thing tangled inside her. Curiosity tugged at her, soft but persistent. A sense that her life had quietly shifted tonight, even before Lucian had spoken of fate. She lifted her eyes to him. If I did go, what would happen to me? Lucian considered his answer carefully. You would be under my protection, he said. Not because you need guarding, but because the capital can be overwhelming. You would meet the oracle. She would see what changed and why. Amelia hesitated. And after that, Lucian's gaze warmed just slightly. After that, you would choose your own path. The thread may connect us, but it does not trap you. Something eased inside her, a gentle unraveling of the fear she had been holding. The moon dipped a little lower, brushing Lucian's profile in a pale shimmer. He looked strong again, fully recovered, yet changed somehow, as though the night had carved a gentler edge into his features. Amelia lowered herself to sit on a fallen log. Lucian sat beside her, leaving a respectful amount of space, though she could feel the warmth of him even from that small distance. May I ask something? She said softly. Anything, he answered. When your fate line shifted, did it feel frightening? Lucian shook his head. Unexpected, yes, but not frightening. He angled his body slightly toward her. If anything, it felt like a door opening after years of being locked. Amelia absorbed that, feeling a soft tug in her chest. And you think I am connected to that door? I know you are, Lucian said without hesitation, his voice calm and sure. but I do not yet know how. She looked down at her hands in her lap, remembering how they had trembled when she pulled him from the fire. I never imagined my life could touch something as important as a king's destiny. Lucian's reply came quiet but certain. Sometimes the moon chooses those who feel unseen, he said. Not because they are insignificant, but because their hearts remain unclouded by expectation. Amelia felt a swell of emotion rise gently within her. The forest felt different now, as if it recognized the shift within her. If I go with you, she whispered, I want it to be because I chose to understand this, not because I am afraid of it. Lucian's gaze softened, warm like sunlight diffusing through clouds. Then let your choice guide you, not fear. And for the first time, Amelia wondered if the thread pulling between them had begun long before the cave, waiting only for the right moment to reveal itself. The first hints of dawn softened the darkness, brushing pale gold along the horizon as Amelia Hart and Lucian remained seated beneath the quiet canopy. The night had not felt long, yet something deep within Amelia sensed that everything she knew had shifted in those quiet hours. The forest seemed to breathe more slowly now, as though acknowledging that one chapter had closed and another waited at the edge of the clearing. Lucian rose first, the early light catching the silver in his eyes. There was no heaviness in his stance anymore, no trace of the exhaustion she had seen when she first pulled him from the smoke. Instead, he carried a purposeful calm, the kind that made the world around him seem to settle. We should return to your village before the sun rises fully, he said gently. Your pack may worry if they see signs of the fire. Amelia nodded, though she heard the unspoken truth in his words. The pack would not worry for her. She had always moved quietly through the edges of their lives, seen but not considered. Still, she understood why he phrased it that way. He respected the world she came from, even if it had not always respected her. She stood slowly, brushing dew from her skirt. For a moment she simply watched him, struck by how natural it felt to stand beside him, though nothing about her life had prepared her for this. Lucian, she said softly. He turned toward her. Yes. If I do choose to go with you, would I be welcomed? By your people? Lucian considered this with honest reflection rather than easy reassurance. The capital can be cautious of new faces, he said, but they follow their king, and I would make my stance clear. Amelia's breath steadied as he stepped closer, not in command, but in quiet sincerity. Amelia, I will never place you where you are unwelcome. If you come with me, you will walk beside me, not beneath. Something warm unfolded inside her at those words, delicate yet powerful. She lowered her gaze briefly, collecting herself. I do not know if I am ready, she admitted. Lucian's voice softened. You do not have to be ready this moment. You only need to be willing to listen to what your heart whispers when fear grows quiet. Amelia lifted her eyes again. The gentle clarity in his expression steadied her more than anything else had. She took a small breath. I want to understand why the thread connects us, even if the truth frightens me a little. A quiet smile shaped the edges of Lucian's expression, warm like dawn touching the earth. Then that is enough. He reached out his hand, not to claim, but to offer. A gesture simple and profound. Amelia hesitated only a heartbeat before placing her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, gentle and sure, the warmth of his touch grounding her like steady earth beneath her feet. The moment their hands joined, she felt it, the faintest pull, like a whispered acknowledgement threading softly between them. Not demanding, not binding, simply present. Lucian drew a slow breath, as if he felt it too. When the sun rises, he said quietly, your life does not have to remain what it was yesterday. Amelia looked toward the horizon, where warm light slowly dissolved the last hint of night. No, she whispered. I suppose it does not. For the first time, the thought did not frighten her. It felt like possibility. Lucian released her hand only long enough to offer a steady nod toward the path. Come, let us return, and when the time is right, we will walk toward the answers together. As they stepped from the clearing, Amelia felt the world expand around her, as if destiny itself had shifted to make room for a story still waiting to be written. And for the first time in her life, she walked toward that unknown future without lowering her gaze.